As everyone has probably heard, there's a massive pandemic called COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus, that is currently affecting pretty much the entire world. Where I live, we are practicing social distancing, and I thought of a great way to use some of my free time. So that brings us to this video, where I'll be creating a website that displays the real-time coronavirus statistics, and I'll even walk you through how to code it. So let's get started with how to code this. I'm going to be using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript because I'll be creating a website and it's going to be a static website, although we will use an API and I'll get to that later when I go over the JavaScript. But first let's start with the index.html. So we're just going to get our simple boilerplate, and Sublime Text does that for us. And then we're going to give it a title. Alright, the head's pretty much done. Oh wait, we gotta include our font. So I'm actually gonna go to Google Fonts and select a font from there. I chose Roboto. And I'll put the link right above my regular style sheet. Save that and we're good to go into the body. In the body, I'll be adding some headings and divs, so let's start with an H1. Paste that in, and in here we'll do Johns Hopkins. Save that. So right now it looks like this because we don't have any styling yet, but let's make it look a lot prettier than this and go to the styles. Alright, that's all for the CSS, so let's see how this website looks. Wow, that was a huge transformation. So we're missing our data here, but we'll add that in with the CSS, with the JavaScript. I don't know why this is much bigger than before. Did I miss something? I might have. Okay, I spelled subtitle incorrectly. That's probably why it wasn't working. Okay, that's way better. So now let's populate everything with our data. So we can go to the app.js. And let's start by adding a window.onload. And this is what we want to happen when the window loads. We'll add that in. And here's going to be where our get the statistics function begins. So how about we write that function to begin? It's called get COVID stats. And then inside here we're going to fetch an API. And the API I used was from this GitHub called Coronavirus Tracker API by xdev. It pulls from Johns Hopkins University and another place, but I think it defaults to Johns Hopkins, so that's where we're getting our data from. And then you just go to the API reference and you select the link that you want to use. So we have an example response there, and I think we use the location. So first I found the location or the ID for the United States, which was 225, I'm pretty sure. Yes, it was 225. So this is the specific country you want to access. And once you've done that, you can follow the basic fetch layout. So you do a dot then, you can do a response and return that in JSON. This allows us to actually interpret the data. And then we're going to use that data in another function. So first we'll just console log the data, make sure we're getting it. Then we'll add some other things, but we also want to add our catch, don't forget that. And if we catch an error, then we're going to console.log error. Alright, so let's test this out. We can reload this page, inspect it, and then go to console and type the name of the function. So I'm pretty sure it was get COVID stats. Yeah, you want to do the one with the brackets, press enter on that, and you can see we get this object of some sort. It's in JSON, but if you click these arrows, you can kind of navigate and see all the data we have. So if we go under latest, we can see our confirmed cases, our deaths, and our recovered. Well, our recovered isn't accurate because they actually deprecated that, so we're not going to pay attention to it. But we get a bunch of these statistics, and that's great, and we could use them in our code. So now, let's actually make this function put that data onto the HTML. So we're going to assign some variables. Let's delete this first, and we'll do let population equal data dot location dot country underscore population. And you may be wondering how I got this very lengthy object in an object in an object. There's several objects in play here. So if we go back and we use our arrows, you can see that first we call data, and this whole thing is the data object. Then a specific property of this data object is location. So if we go to location here, we see that. We go inside, and another property is country population. And we can access that by doing .country population. And that's where we get the number we want. So you have to do this for each one of your variables that you want to create. We'll do a let update equal data dot location dot last update. Then we'll add these in as well. Now we can push this data to the actual HTML through the DOM. So we're going to get each of our H1s with the IDs. So we can do that by using get element document.get element by ID. So I did that ahead of time, and I'm just going to paste that in here, and I'll explain what it does. So first we select our population element, so that would be right here. And then we select the inner HTML property, which allows us to edit the text inside of it, and we set that text to the population variable, which is this. And the .toLocale string, that's just to format it so it has commas where it's supposed to be. Like if it's in the millions or thousands, there's commas, so it looks a little nicer. And also for the date, I cut off the substring a little bit, and I just formatted a lot of these. For the percent, I actually calculated this on my own because, as you can see, it doesn't come from the original JSON data. So let's see how this looks so far. So nothing's showing up because we didn't call that function. But if we do that and we call it in the developer tools, we see we're trying to get something, but there was an error for some reason. Okay, I found the problem, and it was that this .last update is supposed to be .last updated. So let's try that again. Alright, and we should get everything populated, except our country, which we should originally already have in, because we're keeping it to one country. So in this H1, put United States. Now let's reload this, try it one more time. That looks a little wacky now, but if we go full screen, we get everything displayed correctly. And wow, that actually rose from yesterday. Yesterday it was 1.84%, now it's already 2%. Now, how do we make this so we can actually run it every time or update it frequently and not have to console.log it every time or put it in the console every time? The answer to that is, first, we got to put the function in window.onload. That means every time someone opens the page or the page loads up, we will call this function. The next thing we can do is set a timeout for this function. And the way this works is you put the name of the function you want to call, and you specify how many times or how many milliseconds you want to wait before you call it again. For example, if I wanted this to call this every second, then I would put 1000 milliseconds here and it would run every second, so it would update every second. But that's a little fast for us because this is not going to change. This data is not going to change unless the date is updated. So what we want to do is update this every 12 hours. And it's a little bit annoying, but you have to convert 12 hours to milliseconds here because that's what the set timeout function takes in. So 12 hours in milliseconds is this many milliseconds. Yeah, I don't want to deal with that number. I'm not going to read it out loud. It's too much work. So save this, and you'll notice, hopefully, when we reload this, our data will pop up automatically. And there you go. That's your coronavirus tracker. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, be sure to leave a like. And if you want more, subscribe.